Hi, I'm Dur E Aziz Amna, the author of A Splintering, which is out now. Keep listening to Voice It Out podcast.
Hi, it's Amrita, and I'm back with another episode of the Voice It Out podcast and our second episode with an author, and I'm really excited about this one. So this is an author who has a book out at the moment called A Splintering, which I'm definitely enjoying, and I think you will too if you ever come across it. It is Dur E Aziz Amna. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, thank you for coming. Now, like I just said, you've got your book out at the moment. Now, this is your second book. Mm-hmm. Your first book was obviously about 3 years ago, American Fever. How do you feel that this is now your second book, and how has the reception been?
Yeah, it's been great. So this is my second time coming to the UK in the past month. I was here last month because the book got chosen as a BBC radio book club pick, which was fantastic. It was just going into the studios and just doing the whole BBC thing was such an experience. And as you said, it's been 3 years since the previous one, and I think the first book comes obviously, understandably so, with so much pressure, and there's this whole feeling that you have to prove yourself as a writer. And I found the publishing of the second book to be very liberating in that way, because it just comes with, there's so many things that you already know what to expect. You already know that, the way publishing works, and there's a lot of things that are completely out of your control. And so with the second one, I've basically just enjoyed everything that the book has received and not fretted about the rest, which is very different from my experience with the first one.
That's nice. It's almost like you've been there and done that.
Yes.
So you kind of know what to kind of expect and not expect.
For sure.
So I'm just going to give a little bit more about your background, because you won the Asian Pacific American Award. That was for your first book, right? So congratulations. That sounds amazing. And I think that's, if it's your first time author, that is a lot of recognition, I think. It's probably kind of a little bit of validation, I guess, as well.
Yeah.
So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
You've also been featured in so many different publications, including the New York Times, Financial Times, Al Jazeera. So I think that's fantastic as well. Like, I feel like people sometimes struggle with their first book, but it looks like you've got such a great platform for your second book to kind of be based on. I also want to ask you, as you are based in the US, how have you found being based in the US and being a person of color contributed to your second book, The Splintering?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my first book, American Fever, was much more autobiographical. It was about the experience of a young woman who moves from Pakistan, which is where I was born and raised, to the US, and sort of like that dynamic of cultural assimilation, leaving behind home, and that sort of nostalgia for home and all of that. And with the second one, I actually decided that I'd like sort of scratch that itch for a while, that question of identity and home and belonging and all of that. And what I really wanted to do was take this character that came to me so fully formed in my head, and I was sort of obsessing over her, and just tell the story of her life. So the second book is actually set entirely in Pakistan. It has nothing to do with the US. And it was fun to write it, because it more or less is set in the years of my own childhood. And so I didn't have to do a lot of research for it, but I still had to sort of like jog down memory lane and be like, oh, this is the year that this happened or this happened. And so it was a way to, even though it wasn't about home as a theme, it was a way to revisit a lot of the history of the place that I grew up in.
Of course. So just to kind of explain to the listeners a little bit about The Splintering, Tara, who is the protagonist, she's like one of 5 siblings, and she has kind of very wide-eyed dreams about what she wants her future to look like. Very kind of removed from what she knows, what she's grown up with, what her siblings kind of have I guess, understood that their fate is. And she just has this dream of being different. And as you've kind of explained, it does have a lot to do with identity, but it also has a lot to do with what she thinks her own potential is, in a way, what her ambitions are. And I think I have so far found it really interesting to see how she is so comfortable with that and doesn't question herself too much. How did you make her become that confident in, no, I want this and I'm going to go for it? Because I feel like that is so interesting as an underlying theme in your book.
Yeah. the character Tara just came to me so fully formed and so vividly. And I just had this idea of a woman who just really, really wants to get rich and will just stop at nothing. And that was sort of the distinction, because I think, and she alludes to it in the very beginning of the book too, that, there's a lot of people who envy other people who have money, but they just stop at that envy. Whereas I decided that I was going to do whatever it took to get there. And so in my head, she was always just this extremely, extremely motivated character. And that motivation, as like the story progresses, it takes her to like some very dark places. And so I was just very, very interested in this character who will stop at nothing and who has no limits, none of the limits that we generally sort of subscribe to, a lot of people, but especially women.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just about to say that. I feel like we do put our own constraints on ourselves sometimes, probably because of our upbringing and a little bit of conditioning, I would say. So you've said that you were obsessed with this character. I've got to say, I feel like I'm obsessed with her. I'm so interested in the way that she kind of looks at the world, the way that she gets a little bit irritated with like her mother or her mother-in-law. And, she's kind of, as the story goes on, she obviously marries into kind of a place that isn't around where she used to live. So it's a completely different beginning for her, like a new beginning maybe. But ends up kind of in her head, I think, ends up being kind of the same thing. And then she again wants more.
Right.
And then she wants her children to have a different childhood and all this kind of stuff. I think there are so many interesting underlying themes. I've said there is one underlying theme of her confidence in what she wants. But I think there are so many different things about cultural identity, kind of the general culture, the sibling kind of rivalry, or if you can call it rivalry, right? Because she has this kind of juxtaposition with her brother. How much of that came to you from your own experiences, and how much of that have you had to kind of explore when you were writing?
Yeah, so I would say that almost nothing in her life mirrors my own very specific upbringing, but I think the job of the fiction writer, and it's so funny because, you get this question so much that, how much does it have to do with your life? And of course, unless the book is very autobiographical, very clearly autobiographical, it's never your exact story, but you've seen those same things, but from a different angle. So Tara's relationship with her mother is nothing like my relationship with my mother, thankfully. But I've seen that relationship play out among, maybe an aunt of mine and her mother. So there's all this observational stuff that you've spent your entire life sort of gathering in your head without realizing that it will one day come to use. And then it does, which is sort of magical.
That is, I love the way that you said that, because I feel like you just compartmentalize it and then it releases when it needs to, especially if you're kind of creatively like, trying to write something or just release it.
It's great because because so much of what writers do feels so useless, which is that you spend so much time sort of just looking at the world. And a lot of the times in social scenarios or circumstances, you feel like you're half in, half out, where you are part of the conversation, but you're also part of you is outside observing. And it feels like a slightly off-center way to live life. But then when all that becomes material for your book, that's when you're like, that's why I do all that.
That's so funny. So I was going to ask you, actually, it's so funny because I was going to ask you how was your journey to becoming an author? Because if you feel like that's how you live, and I totally get that, because I feel like you have to be an observant person as a writer to even just create characters that you identify with, but even characters that you don't identify with at all. How much of that did you kind of think, this is going to be me, I want to become an author? And were you thinking along those lines?
So I always knew that I wanted to be a writer from a very young age, because I was just a very, very big reader from my early years. And then I started writing for these youth magazines that, come with the newspapers. And so I was doing that even in middle school and high school. And then in university, I majored in English and did a lot of creative writing. So I always knew that I wanted to be a writer. I thought more that I would be like a journalist. And so in the beginning, I would write a lot of those long form nonfiction essays for journalistic outlets and whatnot. But this impetus for writing fiction and creating characters has been somewhat new. So American Fever, which came out in 2022, I started that in 2018. So it's really the past, 7-8 years that I've been exploring fiction more.
Okay. And how long have you been writing The Splintering?
A Splintering I started in 2021 and it just came out. So I guess it took about 2-ish years to finish, and then there's a year that leads up to publication and all that good stuff. Yeah.
Were there any in that time? Obviously, I don't know how writing works in that sense when you're writing a book, but were there any major changes that you had in that time for the story or the characters?
Yeah, I think that a lot of the choices that she makes and the sort of outcomes of those choices, I had to sort of keep maneuvering them. I also have a few trusted readers, and one of them is my husband, and he's very, very brutal with whatever first draft I give him. And so he sort of like tore the first thing apart, which is always awful, but extremely useful and necessary. And so after giving it to first readers, it did change a good amount. Yeah.
Wow. So I think that's really healthy, isn't it, to have someone like that, because you don't want someone who's going to just be the yes person.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. The thing is, it's just so personal to you, and there's just no way to, and I'm curious if other people are able to do it with other lines of work, but with writing, it feels at least impossible to me to separate myself from the work. Yeah. And so it's absolutely impossible for me, at least in that first go, to not take it personally. Yeah. And so I'll get that feedback for 2 or 3 days. I'll just stew in it and just think he's a horrible person for giving me that feedback. But then it's as I said, it's very necessary and it's very helpful. Yeah,
of course. Leading on slightly to the mental health aspect of being a writer or being an author, because when I've spoken to other people who maybe not as an author, but just writers, like script writers or that kind of thing, they have kind of expressed, well, different people have said different things, but that they can be kind of an element of loneliness in writing. Mm-hmm. Have you experienced that at all?
Yeah, I think that, for sure. I think writing is so solitary just by the nature of what it is, and even more than, there's other forms of art that are far more collaborative, like theater or dance or anything where you're part of a group. Writing is just so... And there's just no way around that. I think there's no such thing as, and I was fortunate to go to, in the US, we have a lot of masters in fine arts programs where you go and you're part of this group of writers and you all like do workshop each other's work together. And that sort of assuages it. So finding community always is helpful, and being able to talk to other people about your process and about just like the industry or how, just general things is always helpful. But I don't think there's any getting around the fact that the work itself is solitary work.
That's fair enough. I was going to say, because you obviously have written this kind of character, I'm going by your second book, obviously, you've written the kind of character, like we've said, she's had, I feel like there's an element of trauma to quite a lot of the characters, actually, not just the main character. And I was just wondering, as an author and as someone who is a creator of these characters, how much of that impacts your own mental health, or does it? Yeah,
no, it does. It does. And I remember distinctly, because again, my first book is very different. And I remember that when I would finish work for the day on the first book, I would feel happy and sort of like, just like feeling like I had accomplished something, and just that general feeling of like having had a productive day. With the second one, it was so different because, again, as you said, there's so much sort of dark material in there, or maybe not dark, but as you said, like a lot of the characters are struggling in their own ways. And because they don't really have the language to express exactly what is going on in there, then it's their actions that sort of just end up showing those emotions. And so I remember feeling weighed down every single day when I finished my work on the book. Every single day there was this feeling of like, oh my gosh. Wow. But I mean, of course, and then it passes, and and then you're able to, sort of let go of those characters, and hopefully, like, they'll continue to live on readers' minds. But for you as a writer, I think, at least for me, when I finish the book, I'm able to sort of, like, I was with these people, and now I'm not.
So when you said that, that kind of weighing down feeling, you said that it passes. Was there any time in that where you had to push a little bit more for it to pass because you were so engrossed in kind of what you had written on that particular day, or in what the character's kind of sentiment was that day?
Yeah, I don't know if I can think of any particular day, but I just, I can't think of, like, I just generally remember a vague general feeling of feeling like, wow, this is sort of bringing me down.
I love that, because I think it shows a lot of the impact, not only that it has on you as the person who's creating them, but what kind of impact it might have on the person reading the book, I guess. Yeah. I've got to say I haven't felt like that, because I felt like I really just want to keep reading. I just want to know what's happening next, what's happening next. So I think, it's been one of those.
And I think that's a great point that you bring up, because I think a lot of the feedback that I've gotten for the book is that it's extremely propulsive. Yeah. It feels like a very, like, there's people that and it's so lovely to hear from people where they'll be like, oh, I started at night. I thought I would be reading, the first 20 pages before bed. And then I was up till the morning finishing the book, which, like, I'm sorry for making you lose your sleep, but also that's amazing to hear. And so I do think that it's very curious that something that was sort of painful for me to create becomes this thing that is very easy and propulsive to read.
Yeah, that is quite interesting. Actually, I wanted to ask you, if there was, say, for example, an opportunity for it to be turned into something on TV, do you think you would be okay with that? Or, like, is it something that you just want to leave as a novel?
Oh, no, absolutely. I would love that. And I think actually one of the reasons why is that in the book, and I don't know if you might have also come across one of those passages where Tara has this habit of creating films in her mind where she envisions herself as someone more glamorous than she is, and she's like walking down the street, or she's meeting this guy, or so there's, and I, even when I was writing that, I was like, this feels like, not that I didn't write it, of course, for cinema, but it felt like, oh, what would this look like if this was if the film was made into a film?
Of course. I think I felt that when I've been reading it, that if this was on, like, I don't know, some sort of OTT platform or something, like, what would it look like, kind of thing, and what kind of things would be picked up and not picked up from what you've written. Right. I think that's what I was thinking, because I think because I'm finding it so, like, hard to put down. Yeah. I just feel like it would be that kind of series or that kind of film that you just would not be able to stop watching as well on screen. So I actually also wanted to ask you just slightly about there's a very kind of big theme in the second half of your book about female desire. And that is, I feel like that is, as South Asian women, we don't talk about it enough. It's not probably written about too much. And we kind of almost keep it within ourselves. What made you bring that as so much of a big part of what Tara's kind of trajectory is in the book?
Yeah. So I think that, so there's female desire, but then there's also, God, what is the word? There's an element of her using the fact that she's a woman to get the things that she wants. And without going too much into it, I mean, I think that in a society that, and I don't think this is only specific to Pakistan, but given that Tara has very few other opportunities at her, like, there's a certain sense, again, like, of the limits that society has put on her. And so what is the way, as a woman, what is the easiest way to succeed, or what is the easiest way, really, not necessarily to succeed, but to get a lot of money, which might be two different things. And so that's sort of where that idea came from. And I think it's very curious because, again, what you said, that we talk about it among ourselves. So there's a lot of things that in those societies, of course, like, they happen as they do anywhere else, but there's this hush-hushness around them. Because what's actually been really funny is having my mother and a couple of other older people in Pakistan read the book and expect them to be sort of, horrified. Yeah. And then them turning around being like, I mean, much crazier things happen. Oh, wow. And which is, I mean,
I wouldn't expect that.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's the thing where there's so much happens that is far stranger than fiction. But of course it's not talked about. It's put under covers. And so that actually has been, like, sort of this very, it's been an enlightening part of actually writing the book and having people be like, actually, no, this feels Because one of the worries that I had was, oh, will people even believe that this is like, is this believable?
Yeah.
And the general response has been like, yeah, it could happen.
Wow. That's so good, though. I think that is a really nice kind of bit of reception to get from that part of the book. Amazing. I'm going to move on to the this or that section. I feel like I've been talking to you for about 5 minutes, but we have been talking for quite a while, so I'm going to have to come to an end. I'm so sorry. But let me just come to the this or that section of the episode. So some of these will be related to you as an author, and some of them will be completely unrelated. You can feel free to explain or not explain your answer. Okay, are you ready? Cool.
I think so.
Sun or moon?
Moon.
Okay. Being criticized or being misunderstood?
That's a good one. Being criticized in the long run.
Yes, I get you. Yeah. I totally get you. Money or fame?
Gosh, fame.
I love that. That's the one I would have gone for too. Okay. Feeling proud or feeling safe?
Wow, these are good. Feeling safe. But that's just because I know that that's the right boring answer. Feeling proud feels much better, but I think it's much better for you to feel safe.
The safety, of course. Okay. Pause time or rewind time?
Pause time.
Amazing. Last one. Be invisible or read minds?
Read minds.
Wow, I would love to be invisible. Fly on the wall everywhere. Thank you so much. I feel like literally it's gone in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
But I think we've touched on so many different things in that short kind of time that we've been talking. And I really, really appreciate you coming onto the podcast.
No,
it's been lovely talking to you.
Such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for
I feel like
me.
I need a part 2. I'm in the part 2 of the book, so let me get through that first.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thank you so much. I feel like I just want to say I'm so proud of this book because I feel like it's got so many themes in there that I feel are universal, but also feel really personal. And I think you've struck such a good balance like that in the book that I'm going to be recommending it left, right and centre.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
No, it's not, honestly. Because I feel like, so Shama, obviously, who couldn't be here today, she has said the same thing to me and she was really excited to meet you. But yeah, I think we feel the same about the book. So yeah, thank you so much for, thank you for, coming and sharing so much more about the book than I already know from reading it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to ask you if you could just share your socials. Where do we find you if we want to follow you?
Yeah. So I have a website, as most writers do, and it's Dur E Aziz Amna.com. It's just my name. And then I'm on Instagram at Dur E Amna, DUREAMNA.
Cool. Thank you. We will be tagging you when the episode goes out, but thank you for sharing that. And yeah, is there anything else you'd like to add or anything that you want to say to kind of give us a finale?
No, I mean, I landed in the UK yesterday and this is my very first thing that I'm doing. So I'm very, very happy that I'm here.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really excited to share this episode and I really hope that people do read the book. Go and have a look in all your bookshops. Go and have a look online and find this book and read it. This is Amrita saying thank you to DJ Shy Guy who composed our jingle. And remember, don't keep it in, voice it out. Bye.